was just from that one series.
Yeah, and that's one of the things as well. Like, it's fairly small sample pool of games if you haven't won yet. It's time to get on into the draft. What are we expecting moving forward?
Yeah, I think that when it comes to draft, they're gonna ban out potentially Lightning T's hero pool and Truth's hero pool here for the second phase of the ban. So Baron and Grace are typical bans that come on the first phase. Vox is taken away from Truth of Light, and he's going to pick up the Kestrel immediately because Truth can play a good weapon Kestrel into a Vox.
Look how quick this draft is going on through here. Vox and Kestrel locked in, Catherine banned away. Where are they going with the next ban, Bacon?
There's so many options that they can go here. Obviously, like Squeegee mentioned, because that Kestrel pickup came through, they can't target Truth with that anymore.
Yep.
So they are going to go ahead and narrow down the captain pool. 3 captains taken off the board through these bans. So obviously, Arden going to be a very likely pickup for the side of Nova here because you want to, or maybe even Baptiste, because they can run that as the captain, but you want to grab your captain here. Otherwise, NRG could take them off the board as well.
Yeah, they may take Baptiste here, honestly, because they can flex it either as a captain or as a jungler. But Arden also sounds like a good pick. Yep, they're going to go with the Arden here. So Baptiste is now open for the side NRG. So are they going to pick that? But that also means CP Blackfeather is available on the side of Nova for them to pick.
And also, not to mention, Grumpjaw has made it through all of the bans. Grumpjaw still very available for both of these teams. So I'm curious to see what direction these teams go in. But this is one of the things we were talking about, right? Grumpjaw's made it through, and he's still not a guaranteed pick.
Yeah, he's not a guaranteed pick because of the win rate that he has, suffering pretty heavily in North America with only a 30% win rate in 13 games. Teams just have a better idea of how to play against it, and you have to go the weapon Grumpjaw, so not very likely for NRG to pick it up with already having the Vox.
With the Finn pick here, they have played Scarf, so maybe Scarf can come out, or Samuel here on the side of Lightning T. He does play all those heroes really well, along with the CP Blackfeather. So out of those 3 choices, I think they would pick a more ranged hero. Hopefully they don't do a Celeste jungle, because he has done that as well, and it hasn't worked out as well for them, because Juan will normally do the Celeste jungle, and then Lightning T would like lane glaive in lane. So let's see what they decide for the CP mage here. Might be Scarf though, we'll see.
Is it possible to see a Sky coming on through here?
Oh, it goes to Celeste. Oh man. Okay, so this is, depending on what Nova picks, they could hard counter NRG here, but let's see what is going to come out.
Yeah, I want to see some engage for the side of Nova. They don't really have a way to get onto the Celeste at the moment, so something like a Blackfeather, they're going to go with the Samuel. This could be difficult because Finn is so good against Samuel. Just can stand and build a whole bunch of crystal, a shield, and just stand in front of the Samuel, make sure that those shots are not hitting his backline.
Also, if you can get a great hook onto Samuel and Kestrel, those are 2 very squishy targets that will be deleted instantly. So, our compositions are locked in for our first semi-final here, NRG versus Nova. What are the win conditions going to be coming forward?
Nova needs to not let the Celeste get to late game, because when she's late games, I argue Celeste is better than the Samuel and the Kestrel. And Celeste late game counters a weapon Kestrel very hard. So she's going to be able to poke them with the Finn. So they need to win the early game and secure it.
Okay, so it has to be early game for NRG.
Yeah. Well, it has to be early game for Nova.
For Nova, sorry.
Because if they don't take out that Celeste, like CJ was saying, she's going to be able to just stay safe behind this Finn. The damage is going to be soaked up constantly. And then Vox is also going to be a threat that you have to worry about. So they're going to be trying to focus down the Celeste. Vox is going to be untouched. And it's going to become a mess if they can't shut down the Celeste early, and I just don't think they're going to have the tools to do so.
All right, we'll have to wait and see if that is going to be the case. It's just about time to get on into this game. Let us know who you're supporting, NRG and Nova, in the semi-final right now. Hashtag Vainglory8. This is going to be one heck of a matchup. Who knows who's going to win? It's time to pass it on to our casters to find out.
Thank you very much, Munchables. It's myself, Dalcianic Scoundrel, tonight for North America. I'm pretty excited about this Nova versus NRG matchup. Both these teams making it to day 2, but only one of them can make it further towards the finals. So we'll have to see which one of these guys can grab some serious points.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great opportunity for both NRG, and Nova to get themselves into a position where they can make some maximum bank this week, because you could have been facing TSM or C9, right? Given that that's generally what we seem to find semi-final teams going up against each other with, but you've now got the opportunity, what feels like very level pegging between NRG and Nova, and a team that sort of gets on from this. Yes, they're going to face C9 and TSM, where they have an opportunity to potentially upset the balance of North America by beating them, but just getting to the final gets you a lot of points in the bank as well.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, as we're coming towards the end of Split 1, this is where the points matter the most. You're trying to avoid challenge battles. Currently, Nova going to take control of the middle of the map here, secure themselves an Elder Tree, and going to be good at just making sure that Lone Delphi can stay ahead of this Celeste. There is a lot of opportunity for Nova to pressure the Celeste early on. Perhaps kind of blocked by Finn if Bradley was to roam down a little bit, but Lone Delphi is probably going to have to try and put that pressure on early if he wants to help Nova have a huge impact this game.
Yeah, my worry for Nova is if this gets late game, and I think I'm going to build on what Suijay said. He thinks, he's saying, Samuel isn't as good as Celeste. Like, categorically, I just think Celeste is a better CP carry in the late game. Samuel offers a bit of utility with the Oblivion, but he's so reliant on playing around his Drifting Dark to be effective in the late game. Celeste doesn't have those restrictions. Even she gets more powerful as the game goes on. Level 8 being a big level spike for Celeste to get the extended range on the Heliogenesis. So, I think categorically Celeste is a better late game CP carry than Samuel. There is big opportunity to put pressure on Celeste as the Samuel though, and you're right. Bradley roaming down as Finn. They're going to do everything they can to shield Lightning T's early game.
Yeah, it was even Juan Hernandez coming down on that Vox to make sure that Celeste didn't get engaged upon by Lone Delphi there, and it is just going to be another Treant going over to Lone Delphi. These are sacrifices that NRG can afford to make though in this early game, because soon as level 8 comes around for Lightning T, that Frostburn, that Broken Myth starts stacking up. That's troublesome times for this Kestrel and this Samuel.
As this goes later on, Dalsy, you also have to wonder that despite, if Gauntlet is the only way of engaging, how do you force a fight against a team that just practically outranges you, post level 8 for Celeste? You don't really have anything other than the Gauntlet to do that, and especially if Bradley picks up that Crucible in this game, and that'll be able to keep Lightning T safe from a potential Gauntlet engage, how do you actually force a fight onto a team that's going to, especially once Frostburn's finished, make it very difficult for you to find engages?
This Finn kind of just shuts down everything that Nova wants to do, so it's going to be very interesting to see how Nova decide to play around that. They have a lot of potential to siege, they have a lot of potential to really come in. This is a very aggressive move coming from Lightning T though. He might even be punished by it. No, Full Clap's going to stun Lone Delphi and he's able to get back, but now Juan is a bit trapped in lane, and Truth can continue putting it. A skirmish breaking out, Lone Delphi looking for first blood, Lightning T goes down, and it will be Lone Delphi finding the pressure that Nova needs.
Yeah, Samuel does have huge early game presence, especially in the jungle, and it's not something that I think Lightning T can stand up against on a 1v1 basis. You want to avoid dueling Samuel as much as physically possible on this Celeste. The best way to play Celeste jungle, maybe
Bradley's going to go down here. No way he escapes. All right, it's going to be Juan being pressured down. Truth, one more Glimmer shot in the bag, and it wasn't enough to find a kill there. That's so frustrating for the side of Nova that they couldn't find a kill there.
No, absolutely. But, they might be able to put a little bit of pressure onto this turret. Any damage done now is something they can cash in later to sort of put real pressure onto that tier 1 turret in the lane. And obviously with the weapon power Celeste, that will go down very quickly if you get the opportunity to land some Glimmer shots onto it. In my opinion, the best way to play jungle Celeste is, yeah, you can sometimes rotate to lane, look for core collapses, but for the most part, literally power farm to level 8. That is where you come online as a Celeste from the jungle. Power farm to level 8. The differences between jungle and lane is your gold income is better in the lane, but your experience income, I guess I can phrase it that way, your experience income is better in the jungle. So you hit your level spike far more quickly in the jungle as Celeste as she catches out Starboy here. He will be able to just back out though. But again, you don't hit your item spikes as quickly. So you trade off getting a high sort of item volume for Celeste for a high experience gain. So you're just going to rush towards that Frostburn level 8, which will be the big spike for Lightning T here. So I want to see him just absolutely power farm his way there, try and avoid any 1v1 duels with Samuel, come in to relieve pressure on lane, but don't make any flashy plays until you know you have the advantage.
Nova continuing their rotations by rotating down through their opponent's tribush. Not only do they gain vision, but they gain the potential of running into Lightning T and stealing away either his front healing camp or his front doubles. And so, you know, this is just Lone Delphi continuing to try and snowball a bit of a lead for himself. You can see that it's only a slight advantage. Realistically, the CS that Lone Delphi has ahead of Lightning T, we're at about, what is that? 7 at this point. It is due to stealing away a couple of the front camps, but more importantly, gaining every middle treant that was available to him. So there's a slight lead to Lone Delphi. He has got his Frostburn, whereas Lightning T has the gold for it, but hasn't combined it yet. Lone Delphi's building towards a second damage item. He's got a bit of defense there as well. Nova really need to start finding kills, and Bradley might be the target. Oh, he is. That's going to be an easy one for Truth to pick up. And with that Captain down with no fountain available in lane, this could be an easy turret for Nova.
Exactly, and a really good way to punish a Celeste in the jungle, but who will obviously want to try and farm as quickly as possible, is utilize the best thing that Samuel does, which is being an incredible siege tool in the early game with this Drifting Dark, and combine that with the Weapon Power Orchestra who outputs this much damage onto those key targets. It's a very easy siege process here for Nova. Catch someone out with that sort of Frostburn, Drifting Dark, head into lane again, over and over, cast it out, and just use the range advantage that you have right now to punish a defense from the NRG side of things. We haven't really talked about sort of we talked about it yesterday, but touching on it again, the talent on this Nova roster is incredibly high. I mean, this is probably one of the most talented rosters in North America, and you feel with a bit more time to gel as a unit, they could be on that level of contesting the likes of C9 and TSM. You know, eventually, you've got some incredible players there. So, you know, if they get...
It's new talent versus seasoned, I think is what I would put it with Nova. You know, you think about Lone Delphi, Troop, and Starboy. Yes, they've all had some experience, but they haven't really had major experience, I don't feel, in the VG8, and they haven't really had their shot as yet. So combining all of them together here, it's huge potential if they're able to mature as a roster. I think that's going to be the major word, though, there, Excounter, is mature. You know, Lone Delphi, a young player. I don't know much about Truth. Starboy, obviously, everyone knows who Starboy is and what he's all about. So, you know, if they can find some maturity, whether it be in a week-to-week schedule, whether it be just developing as a roster, then actually they have a lot of potential towards them.
Lightning T now level 8, by the way, so he's hit that threshold where suddenly he's going to start having a range advantage. He'll be able to clear waves a little bit more safely. He'll be able to defend these sieges a little bit more readily, and even can set up sieges of their own now as well. Little Starboy walking straight through.
Yeah, but he's going to pop that gauntlet down. Unfortunately, doesn't catch anyone. And that's going to be Lone Delphi pulled into a quibble. Oh no, Fountain gets popped, but they're turning it on. It's head. Lightning T just about survives with Fountain of his own. Solar Storm won't connect. That one-shot will into Bradley. He'll happily take the shot. Nova, very low. At level 8, Heliogenesis does so much work, and Juan's going to find a kill for himself. Nova's in a lot of trouble here. If they're able to push Lightning T off this turret, then perhaps they survive a harass. But Juan is pretty hungry for the turret. He's pretty hungry for Lone Delphi, but he will not find the kill. Now Truth looking for Bradley. It's gone wrong for Nova, for NRG, and Nova might even be able to get a turret off of that.
Celeste looks like she's powering her way to this tier 1 turret to defend, though. She has got that massive range advantage, remember. Don't think she'll get there in time. Little bit of an overextension. Looks like Lightning T's coming in.
Whoop, Lightning T. He's not going to find the kill, though. That is frustrating. You see 2 low health members and you think it's the easiest thing. No, with the Glimmer Shots, with those Malice and Verdicts, it's very difficult to take down these ranged heroes all by yourself.
Especially in that sort of corridor area. Remember, there is a massive thing with Celeste that you do have a cast animation for your Heliogenesis, which puts you stationary for a moment in time. As long as Truth dodges out the initial engage, you know, he then has an easy target for a Glimmer Shot, especially as you know Celeste is mainly going to want to be casting those Glimmer Shots through that animation. So you have a little bit of a time period to land a big hitting Glimmer Shot, and you saw there he was easy targets for Truth, who was able to just snipe Lightning T out, casting those Heliogenesis that didn't have the effect that I think he wanted them to have.
Everyone's grouping up here. It's Infusions just expiring for the side of Nova. In fact, have they bought Infusions yet? I'm not sure they have. Now I think about it. They've just been doing this through pure damage alone, whereas NRG have been infusing, so I feel like Nova and Infuse could really go a long way for them at this point. That's going to be Starboy not quite blocking the Force Accord, but they can re-engage. Lightning T gets dropped. In fact, it was one, and now Lightning T's in a lot of trouble. He's up against the Crystal Miner as Bradley gets focused down. That's a double kill. The Crystal Sentry pretty much does the work, and Lightning T's just going to walk to his death here as he gets sandwiched. It's a triple for Truth, and Nova are snowballing this game just how they need to.
I think NRG saw that they had infusions and that the Nova's team didn't, but you didn't take into account the other item spikes that you have to be aware of. Samuel had finished Broken Myth. They blocked out the initial engage. He was able to build Broken Myth stacks quite readily in that fight, and that made him such a powerful tool for Nova in the midst of that very small corridor where he could land some massive hitting Malice and Verdicts. Truth has hit his Sword Blade Tension Bow item spike. He is post level 8, so that's critical strike. He's going to start to apply to his glimmer shots as well. I don't know if NRG took into account these big item spikes that Nova had hit. They just thought, we have infusions, they don't. Maybe it's the time to fight.
Yeah, I think that you've hit the nail on the head there. NRG know that they have a good late game. They know that Celeste, Vox, and Finn will all scale into their own right, perhaps just underestimating that they haven't quite hit that point yet. That's a huge chunk of gold going over to Nova, not only in the gold miner, but actually with Truth being able to sneak in, steal all the backs as well. He's put Lightning T behind considerably. It's Broken Myth finished for Lone Delphi. He's already at a point where he is Eve of Harvest is going to be ready for him in the next minute, and Lightning T hasn't got the gold to complete his Broken Myth. Truth's almost stealing away more camps, and you can see that NRG are grouping up as a 3 to ensure that Lightning T get these camps. Lone Delphi should be finishing this Eve of Harvest very soon, and
yeah,
this is a worrying port.
I think what's even more important is this is yet more item spikes that Nova are going to be able to play around, and more time that we're going to have to allow NRG to turtle if they want to try and beat them out in a straight up 3 versus 3. Look at the damage coming up from those Malice and Verdicts. Delphi missing a couple, but lands some big ones onto Juan Hernandez. Oh, Truth as well. One shot, one kill.
Wow, Lightning T goes right down, but this turret is just getting harassed right out. Starboy has his gauntlet. Nova are unlikely to just go for a full-on turret dive without their minions here. Minions are currently at the halfway point, but they can move over and take the Crystal Sentry instead. Lightning T finally completes that Broken Myth for himself, but Lone Delphi is only 200 gold away from completing his Eve of Harvest and maintaining an item advantage over his counterpart here. Pretty insane stuff for the side of Nova, and you have to wonder if NRG, you know, I think the one thing I want to focus on is actually just Bradley more than anything. You know, this Finn needs to be a tanky frontline for his double range. That's the way this composition works, and he hasn't hit a point where he's tanky whatsoever.
Also, categorically, if you give a CP jungler with a Frostburner lead, Finn is such an easy soak for Broken Myth stacks. Also, you know, ability for him to slow him down in the midst of these team fights. Finn is like prime targets for the likes of Celeste with Frostburn and Samuel with Frostburn to literally sit there and get free stacks, because he's such a big character model, he's so slow, Frostburn makes him even worse, and that's an easy place for Lone Delphi to build up stacks and then turn his eye onto trying to hit Lightning T or Juan Hernandez during Drifting Dark. So yeah, you're right, Bradley has been a bit of a fallback here, or sorry, a bit of a I guess a drag. I'm trying to think of the word to like.
A sponge. He's just a sponge.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, he's not a sponge that's, you know, taking all the damage and then spitting it out again. He's just, you know,
a dead weight. I was looking for the word dead weight. He's a little bit like a dead weight, because he's not really offering much right now, apart from soaking up a little bit of poke through the use of his polite company. But otherwise, he's basically giving free stacks over to Lone Delphi. Truth has finished up the Tornado Trigger, gives the highest amount of critical strike in this particular build path, and gives him some ability to rely on basic attacks when he doesn't have the opportunity to use those glimmer shots. So he's now pretty much at full weapon power build here, Dalsey, and pretty much you'd say that Lone Delphi now sitting at his full build as well. So this is a full built Nova squad looking to siege onto this tier 2 turret.
Certainly is, and yesterday we saw Bradley be so impactful. Oh no, never mind, that's a gauntlet catching out Lightning T, and he gets disassembled, completely destroyed there. A sleep puts one down, and that's going to be an ace coming out for Nova, as Bradley just couldn't do enough to save his roster. Had the Crucible up, not entirely sure why it was not used. Turret goes down, Nova looking for a second.
What I really like about what Nova do is how efficiently they fight around those big item spikes that we talked about. Truth now, full item build. It was so easy for Nova to force the fight there. Again, the gauntlet, you look to the gauntlet from Starboy, that categorically won the fight from the outset, but also the position of Truth. Knew exactly
no! Lightning T just walked straight into an active camo trap of a weapon power Kestrel. Now Juan is dead. That's going to be the Crucible actually saving his life, but Bradley will go down. Nova have a minion wave crashing in as well. I wonder if they stick around, take a turret, or if they just decide to go back and get the Kraken.
I think they go and get the Kraken here, probably the safest option for them. I think also you have to point fingers to Bradley. That gauntlet could have been avoided. I don't know whether it would have saved Celeste. Yes, he would have saved the stun, but I think she still would have been chased down by Truth in the active camo. Truth's positioning there as well, caught out Lightning T. If you can get Truth into the range of Lightning T, especially at this point in the game, Lightning T goes down in an instant. The Celeste ultimate comes out.
It's alright.
Doesn't get it. The real advantages for Lightning T would have been if he has complete vision of the Nova roster and can use that excellent range advantage of the Heliogenesis. The problem is that he's so far behind that even with that range advantage, he's not getting enough work done. And even if he could, Starboy is still finding the engages with the gauntlet. That's these, like, you know, we said at the start of the game, Dallas, we said one of the only ways to capitalize for Nova is using the gauntlet from Martin. Well, Starboy is using it pretty well.
Certainly is. Now Nova with a Kraken going to push into the base. 2 Vein Crystal turrets separating them from victory here in game 1, and it's looked so clean so far for this roster of talent. Currently just gearing up, ready to start taking these turrets. Lightning T trying to do some poke damage. That's going to be a force to call, just completely dodged. Good. Crucible will dodge out, but it's not enough to keep Juan alive. He just drops right where he stands. Truth dives on and finds himself a double kill. Doesn't even care about the staircase and the damage it puts out. He is happy to dive it. That's the ace. That's Nova taking the Vein Crystal and securing game 1.
Damn, what a performance from Nova in this game. Took the advantages that they saw in the early game and ran with it. They played around the fact that they had serious item spikes at every major team fight that they took throughout this game. NRG made a mistake around level 8, that they had those infusions. They thought they could fight against a completed Broken Myth and Lone Delphi. They could not, categorically. Ended up losing, and I think that was the major snowball fight that went in favor of Nova.
We saw that earlier from Mouse as well, Scoundrel, where late game compositions try to fight in the early to mid game and get destroyed. NRG will have to change things up in game 2, but let's throw it back to our desks for some further analysis.
I thought that was meant to be close, guys. What was that? Truth, 12-0-2. This is not a team that just went 0-2 2 weeks in a row, is it? Like, am I missing something here?
What that was a team playing to their win conditions. They completely denied and shut down that Celeste all game long. Never was allowed to get rolling, and that's what happens. That's what happens when you shut down a weak early game jungler that needs to get to the late game. European teams might want to take a note for when they're playing against things like Scarf.
I mean, I'm legitimately taken aback on this.
Lightning T did have a few weird rotations where he caught himself off guard and kind of handed over some kills over to them. But here was a play that NRG actually did well, but for some reason, they get the turret here, right? This is a huge play for them, but they screw it up here. Juan tries to go for the kill on Delphi, he gets killed, and then Lightning T just goes home and just lets Bradley get killed there. Nova gets 2 kills from that, and they also lose the turret. You know, Nova gets a turret, and because of that, they actually get a 2k gold lead. Like, NRG just handed Nova 2k gold lead with them taking a turret. So, some bad decision making for sure. And then the team fights from there just went in the way of Nova. Like, every time they were just outplayed. Lightning T was behind items. Delphi got two tier 3s and 3 tier 3s before Celeste could even get her power spike, and they just went from there.
Yeah, both Truth and Lone Delphi as well were on their highest win rate heroes personally. They were on their comfort picks. Obviously, you know, they've not won that many games, so it doesn't lend a lot in terms of a statistic, but it definitely says that these are comfort picks for them. These are picks that they are happy to go on. And now looking towards the second game of the series, you have to assume that the draft has to change here for NRG. You can't allow that same thing to happen twice.
But it's going to be so difficult to do so because they're on B side now. And so, like, if you decide, okay, we're going to take away the Kestrel, well, then you're giving grace to them. Like, it's such a difficult spot to be in after getting obliterated by one specific hero and then switching on to B side. It's just a really tough spot to be put into.
Yeah, so it's going to be an interesting... I mean, what can NRG do to change the outcome here? Aside from just the draft, like, is there something that they were doing explicitly wrong during this game, like repeatedly wrong, that they can fix going into
when they won that lane fight at the 9-minute mark, they needed to have a better strategy. I mean, they literally just handed over 2 kills. Like, literally handed over 2 kills. Handed a Lightning Team, then respawned, came back, died again. And that gave Nova the gold mine, the turret. I mean, it was a really bad play. That 9 to 12-minute mark really screwed up NRG, so they need to not make those huge mistakes.
So it was like, once it started going wrong, they kind of panicked a little bit.
Yeah, then it just snowballed.
Kestrel has been banned away here by NRG, but Grace was banned by Nova.
Yeah, I'm really surprised that Nova banned away Grace. I just don't feel like that's a side, a blue side ban. Like, it's just a difficult spot to, like, it makes it a lot easier for the side of NRG, but it does allow them to pick up this Batiste. Again, we know they can flex the Batiste pick into the captain role if they need to. So this is a pick that Nova's going to be very comfortable taking first.
Yeah, this is something Starboy played a lot yesterday and to great success.
Yeah, NRG should try to get Baron and CP Blackfeather here. Not only can CP Blackfeather poke them, but Baron also has good poke as well. He can also jump out of a bad situation if he's ordained, in case they do try to run the Captain Batiste here. Because if you think about it, if you give a Captain Batiste over to like a Baron and CPPF, that's a pretty strong combination. They're going to go with the Adagio, and they actually have gone with the Adagio's Captain more often than carry. And they normally do that with like a Glaive or something, for example. So NRG is kind of going comfort pick here right now.
So I've just been told by production, apparently that game for Truth boosted his average KDA by 0.3. Like
another 0.3 over
that's
yesterday.
A huge jump up just from a single game when you're talking about averages. Adagio is going to be the lock-in here for NRG, obviously, and now they're going to be banning away the Baron. They don't want Nova to get their grubby mitts on that one.
Well, they're also banning it away from themselves because they had the next pick, so it's something that they don't want to pick. So EJ does not look terribly pleased with a Blackfeather.
Yeah, just Adagio is not mobile. He doesn't have good escape as a captain, as a carry. Just not good into Batiste in general. He's so easy to hit with the Mojo. That's why, look at that, Baron and Blackfeather are banned, and that's what they needed on NRG side here. So Idris is going to be picked here. Again, Idris can be locked down by the Batiste ordained. When he does his Shroud Step, he still will get stunned if he Shroud Steps through the ordained, based on how the Ordained works in ability description. So Idris is actually not as good of a pick because he can be CC'd by Batiste and feared as well. So let's see what Nova's going to round up. But I have a feeling they're probably going to run with a Captain Batiste here because his Fearsome Shade is going to cancel the Adagio ultimate as well.
Yeah, the ultimate coming from the Batiste, again, if this does end up as a captain and you get the Echo coming out once again, you could see it. It's just so difficult to avoid getting an ultimate with a long channel like a Verse of Judgment canceled. Then just going to be a Vox on top of it.
Vox with Samuel probably here.
Very, very popular pick.
Probably go with Samuel or maybe Rhyme if they want to be risky. But Rhyme is a little risky because Lightning T can play Sky, so they'll probably pick a Samuel just to be safe here. And with a Batiste captain, it actually counters a little bit the assassins like Koshko or Taka that they could play into a Samuel. So let's see if Duffy's going to go on his one trick Samuel. No, I'm just kidding.
Definitely a comfort pick for him, though. I mean, the other option is the Batiste goes to the jungle and we pick a captain. Is that an option here, or is the Batiste just much better in a captain?
I think it's definitely an option, especially if you go for something like a Catherine. Again, having multiple ways to cancel out the Adagio ultimate. Catherine is really good into the Idris, but they're going to take a Lyra who kind of slipped through the cracks a bit here, I think. Lyra is, again, a very strong pick, and giving the sustain in the lane means that the Vox, who would normally lose out a little bit against an Idris, will be able to maintain the lane, and then Batiste, with his already incredible sustain, is going to have even more survivability.
Yeah, huge sustain on this squad.
So let's see if NRG goes with Scarf maybe or something potentially here. What they've been known to play, Samuel, CPBF. And they're going to go with the Samuel here. So I think from a composition standpoint, I do like Nova's draft much better because Truth is on his Vox. Lyra is very strong with Batiste in the early game against an Adagio Samuel.
Right, well, the Samuel has been locked in. That's rounded out the composition for NRG. Sweetie, you've already said you like Nova's draft a lot better. Bacon, how are you feeling about the drafts?
I like the Nova draft a lot better as well. It's just the way that they play. This is a draft that fits them perfectly. It's something that they can be a little bit patient in the very, very early game, but then once the mid game hits, they're going to have very strong power spikes, and they should be able to take the fight to NRG. And if NRG doesn't clean up their early game rotations, it's going to be another slugfest in favor of Nova.
So, do my eyes and my ears deceive me, or do I have two analysts here both going for a Nova 2-0 in this series?
Yeah, just based on how they played, they just they played cleaner. NRG just played kind of sloppy, to be honest. Like they don't have a macro game or plan in how they're pushing turret and stuff like that. So if they keep that up, they're gonna struggle against Nova for sure.
All right, well, we've seen Nova take the first game. I didn't believe it, but I'm slowly but surely being persuaded to the Nova side right here. We'll see if they can turn this into a 2-0. Let us know on social media who you are wanting to win this game. Hashtag Vainglory8 is where you can get in touch. But it's time to head into game 2 of our first semi-final here in North America.
Thank you very much, Munchables, and this should be a treat as well. Completely different compositions for us, Scoundrel. And we had a bit of a chat. Everyone's been talking a bit about Vox versus Idris, who wins out. Let's hear from you first, Scoundrel. Since you're the analyst, I'll let you, kind of lead on that one first.
Okay, so I've always felt that Weapon Power Idris is good into low mobility or singular cooldown mobility weapon power range carries, like Ringo, like Baron, something like that. I think it's a bit more skill matchup when it comes to Vox, because Vox specifically is very high mobility, and a lot of it depends on the timing of your resonance as well as the timing of your ultimate, and obviously whether Idris can dodge that with his ultimate and so on and so forth. So I think there's a lot of skill that comes in the Idris and Vox matchup. I talked in chat about how Book of Eulogies actually completely nullifies range advantages in lane. It's one of the things that I do get frustrated about. The one single item that you buy at the start of the game basically nullifies range advantages in lane in a lot of ways, because you can sustain so heavily with it. But for the most part, I think it's a bit more of a skill matchup than anything.
And I would be tending to agree there. I think that, the matchup between Idris and Vox actually comes a lot down to who Vox has as his counterparts and how a fight is started. It's very conditional. It's not a straight, Idris wins or Vox wins. I actually think in a 1v1, Idris probably can win against Vox majority of the time if Idris gets the jump on Vox. Due to my, experience, I tend to find that. But, in a team fight, it comes down to how your captain plays the fight, what your junglers are doing. And if you look at the two different compositions as well, you've got a Batiste here who's going to shut down the Idris if he's not shut downing the Vox. Lyra obviously is going to be fantastic at keeping the Vox alive, probably better than Adagio is to be keeping the Idris alive. Although the Agent of Wrath obviously going to help with the damage that Idris can put out. So there's so many different elements, and it's not an easy answer of one beats the other.
I think in this situation, I favor the Vox, specifically for the reasons that you said, because, oh wait a second,
Starboy might be dead here. Yeah, he's going very low. He does go down. It's first blood going over to Bradley. He needed to step up after last game, and step up he did by securing that first blood for his team. I
don't know. Truth has to be super careful in this situation. He doesn't have a Book of Eulogies. He doesn't have that sustain apart from the potions ticking away. Lone Delphi just trying to walk in.
That's a very aggressive move. Lightning T with the Malice and Verdict, not quite finding these shots. Nice slowdown with the Bad Mojo. We'll keep him alive, but now he's contesting his own jungle here. Will he be able to get it? No, he won't. That's going to be going over to Lightning T.
In this situation, we were talking about the Vox and Idris. I think that I favor Vox specifically because you have the Bright Bulwark to help protect him. You've got the Ordain to sort of peel off the Idris, and Ordain might force Idris to use an ult in a situation where he doesn't feel like it's the ult, the best potential of use of it. So then you have the follow-up of the Resonance and the Silence, and suddenly Idris might feel dead in the water. So I think in this situation, I favor the Vox just because of that. However, I do like the potential for the burst of Idris jumping in, get the Agent of Fire, so you get the Gift of Fire, then the Agent of Wrath. You actually have a lot of burst damage coming there onto that target on Vox.
Bradley, gonna take a bit of poke here. It's probably worth noting that Idris's ult has many weird interactions, very frustrating interactions sometimes. If you were to ordain Idris and he jumps into his Shimmer Strike, then Idris may feel like he should be able to jump out whenever he wants, but actually the Ordained will stun him whilst he's in his ult, meaning that he loses control of his character and will get popped out randomly in a random direction. So that's obviously very frustrating when you play Idris. So there are lots of different ways to kind of counter the Idris with the Ordained. However, I do think that Lone Delphi is probably going to prioritize Lightning T in most scenarios, so we can try and force him out of his Drifting Dark and try and minimize the damage he puts out. Very aggressive move here by Bradley, will be punished heavily by it, forced to go back. Just trying to hold the wave though for Juan Hernandez, so perhaps it's all worthwhile for NRG.
But already we have the Poison Shift coming out of Truth, so big spike to help him prevent the damage, also prevent the healing that Bradley puts out with this A, Fountain, and B, Gift of Fire. It is obviously the go-to first item. Just we have a chase onto Samuel here. Lightning T will prop the Drifting Dark, and Lone Delphi will be forced away on this Batiste, and then he's going to have to then rethink about his moves in the enemy jungle. I think something that is also going to be really impactful is going to be the Gift of Fire, and if Nova then sort of moves, that's another Gift of Fire, the Verse of Judgment. If Nova try and then follow up a fight and get baited straight into the the Verse of Judgment by Bradley, large potential for Lightning T and Juan Hernandez to go to burst the target there. So we saw Flash X do it specifically yesterday, how game-changing the Verse of Judgments could be. Bradley might be able to achieve something similar.
Yeah, certainly, and if the Crucible is prioritized for Oblivion, then that opens up Verse of Judgment. If it's prioritized for Verse of Judgment, then that opens up the Oblivion. So, you know, obviously Nova are going to be looking to block the first impactful ultimate. That will be Starboy's job. It will come down to the carries to block their own after that. NRG looking for a fight, but here comes Lone Delphi, level 6, and he wants in. Lightning T gonna pop that. Oh, that puts everyone to sleep. The Oblivion pretty big, but is it enough to win the fight? The Fountain comes out. Juan, not able to secure that healing, goes over to Truth. With that healing over, Nova going to be pretty happy they have the advantage, but they don't want to fight in this tight corridor. It only opens up to trouble. Truth putting the damage down. Bradley's been isolated, and that's going to be the Ordained stunning him and making sure he goes down. Juan can't find the kill into Truth. He falls as well. Lightning T just about escapes. No, he doesn't. Truth goes over the wall, but Truth takes the Crystal Sentry damage and will be finding himself going back to base.
Massively ambitious move by Truth there. I think he might have just been showing off the Vox wall jump more than anything, but that was massively ambitious to make that move against the Samuel. One thing that we have to talk about that NRG do have, Dalcy, and a lot of it I think will become more apparent as the game goes on. Samuel does provide a major range advantage, especially when you have that Frostburn in tow. So there is a major area of the game that NRG can look to exploit by just literally using Malice and Verdict at range, preventing Nova from finding a good engage on their terms. Because if you're getting consistently pummeled by Malice and Verdicts from Samuel, one of the main ways you want to try and alleviate that is by finding a hard engage. The only hard engage I think realistically that Nova have on the table is the Lyra Portal, or you could have the War Treads into Ordained, but you know, Lyra Portal would be your main form, and then you just play straight into bringing targets to Idris and bringing targets into range of Verse of Judgment. So a lot of unique ways that this teamfight could go out.
Juan just about escapes that Fountain, well timed, and able to escape the Ordained there. Didn't want to use his ultimate, would have been a more safer way, I think, to have escaped if he ulted onto his teammate, then his teammate escorted him away. This does open up the gold miner though for Nova, as NRG will push the wave in. Bradley's going to check it out. Oh, Oblivion puts it to sleep. Oh, it's stolen by Lightning T over the wall. That's a huge error for Nova. A lot of gold just gifted to their opponents for no apparent reason.
Yeah, massive error, because they knew they could force the fight as they had the Fountain advantage, and obviously NRG would not want to take that fight. But I think they neglected the body blocking of those Malice and Verdicts, especially the empowered splash damage Malice and Verdicts that come when you have the Drifting Dark coming down. They managed to avoid the major threat, which was the Oblivion across the wall. That's the major one that you want to worry about, but they just neglected that splash damage from the Malice and Verdicts. And wow, Lightning T keeping his team in the running in terms of that global gold advantage, still ahead by about 100 gold at this point in time with that beautiful steal across the wall. And now the Fountain is back up for Bradley, so all of the advantages that Nova had are all now gone.
Yeah, certainly. If that had gone the other way, then it would have been a snowball for Nova. But now things are back on even footing here. Juan, he has completed his double items, now looking to go towards a bit of defensive, as you usually do on the weapon power Idris. Truth going to be prioritizing a breaking point before he really dives into that defensive tree. Does open up potential for a teamfight advantage for the side of Nova if they're the aggressors. And if Lone Delphi can find some key damage onto a key target like this, I'm surprised they don't throw the Fearsome Shade out just to force him into the Ordained War, or at least force a block. Seems a little bit odd, especially when you have an ultimate from Truth, but he is low energy, so perhaps they couldn't afford the silence onto Bradley to make sure it wouldn't get blocked out. Nova, though, will round the corner, and that's going to be Lightning T, just chopped right down, stayed too long in a dangerous position, and Nova able to punish it.
Something that we haven't talked about, by the way, is that the Shattered Glass in any CP carrier... Wait a second.
Bradley should be okay here, I think. Yeah,
it should be fine. Something that we haven't talked about is how Shattered Glass is good against double CP carry, but also on top of that, how Batiste with the Shattered Glass is doubly good against double squishy carries, because A, you have the Shattered Glass for the scaling regardless. Shattered Glass generally considered the go-to when you have to deal with double squishies. But you also have the incredible power of these empowered bad mojos that just absolutely shred through both Lightning T and Juan Hernandez. Even with the small amount of shielding that they've got, it still does an incredible amount of damage. They might be losing a turret here. Yes,
they are. That's going to be Nova mispositioning, but they will be able to find a kill in return. A late Oblivion comes out from Bradley. The Fear going to push everyone away here. Nova still have a lot of strength. I think that they're currently stronger compositionally at this point, so this turret should go down. Burst of Judgment won't find a kill, and that's just going to be Bradley losing his life. Lightning T needs to make sure he doesn't become a third, as Truth almost goes down. The one tanking the turret will be able to get a heal here, unless Lightning T snipes him. He's going to get ordained here, Lightning T. Juan's coming in. This could be a turnaround. He's going to go in with a Shimmer Strike. That's going to be Starboy falling. No, it's actually Lone Delphi, and Lightning T not able to keep the damage up. Truth dancing around at the moment, looking to dodge out these Malice and Verdicts going in, but he just loses his life. Bit ambitious there, like his wall jump earlier. Will get himself shut down.
I mean, he seems to think that he can duel a Samuel on very low HP, but the problem is that as a Vox, when you go against a Samuel, you're always going to lose the range battle. So you either have to commit and say, my sustain and my reduction have his sustain with the Poison Shiver win me the fight. He might have been waiting for a tension bow proc. That might have been why he was dancing around so much. That's the only thing I could think of. Otherwise, you just lose range matchups versus the Samuel with the Vox. So you need to just commit in that instance. But that was interesting. Left Bradley using the Burst of Judgment. He had just used Gift of Fire into Lightning T, so had got no Gift of Fire proc, so was looking for no stuns. The stuns might actually have changed the fight because Crucible was down, and Truth had also used his Reflex block. So Bradley, by using a Gift of Fire onto Lightning T, who was at 3/4 HP regardless, meant he wasn't able to land any Gift of Fire procs onto Nova, and therefore the Burst of Judgment was literally just there for a little bit of damage.
Looks like Nova going to waltz energy back into their jungle here. Truth, though, deciding to go aggressive for the Treant means he doesn't get the full heal from Lyra. NRG looking very healthy right now. Looking to aggress forward. Delphi gets poked right down by the Malice and Verdict and the Chakram, and look at them coming out. The Frostburn slowing Lone Delphi. He may lose his life. There's the fountain. It comes out, but Juan's going in. Fear goes out, doesn't connect with anyone. Juan, he jumps away, and that's going to be a Burst of Judgment blowing everyone up. Stuns out Juan. Now, Nova looks to turn on their tails as Truth starting to do the work. Chakram rips through him. Oh, has to turn around. Will be able to escape for now, but Lightning T with a drifting Dark Malice and Verdict looking to fire some shots. This Gold Miner will be going the way of Nova, as at this time it looks like there won't be a contest. Actually, there will. Juan's going to move forward, but he's not in time. Chakram won't do enough, won't find a kill, or a Gold Mine still, so it is going to be Nova finding an advantage here.
Oh, Juan Hernandez. I think actually if I were to go back and redo that fight for NRG, they committed a little too early. I think they could have played on that Frostburn range advantage that they had just a little bit longer to try and force out a fountain before the fight took place. I think Juan committed very early. Gotta say, his use of his ultimate, the ultimate was fantastic to block out the Fearsome Shade and get onto the other side of the fight, but I mean, he underestimated the sustain that a Batiste has through the use of his bad mojo, but B, they didn't have the execute damage necessary. And look at this, he's also gone for a breaking point now. So breaking point finish for him is again something following that Kavalafar did in the EU VG8.
So let me talk about that a little bit, Scoundrel.
Sure.
I know you're just going to ask me, but I've decided to jump the gun. I've changed my mind, Scoundrel, about breaking point.
Okay.
I've genuinely changed it. I used to be a massive disbeliever of it. I thought it was only needed in certain against certain heroes, you know, the likes of Rona, these big tanky brawlers, but actually against Vox it makes a lot of sense. Tension Bow, great, because it does a lot of burst damage, but we'll have to talk about later as Lone Delphi's just walked. Lightning T, sorry, just walked to his death. Looked like it was unintentional. A pause does come out, so perhaps some connection issues, and this will allow me to continue my point. Vox, Idris, whenever you have those fights, they last a long time. They really do. They never go burst. You know, when Idris goes against a Celeste, when Idris goes against a Scarf, these kills happen very quickly. But when it's against a Vox, because of his kite ability, because of his self-healing from the Poison Shiv, especially when you have a Lyra on your team, these fights between Idris and Vox will last a long time. So the breaking point actually allows the Idris to ramp up at the same time the Vox is ramping up and gives him a much equal footing in the Vox versus Idris matchup. So, you know, I personally used to build a lot of tension bows against Vox, but I've started realizing that actually, especially in the late game against Vox, breaking point is 100% necessary in this matchup, or else late game Vox will just outclass you if you don't have that breaking point.
Especially with the metal jacket finished on Vox as well, it makes perfect sense that this is something that you're going to need to give you the necessary damage to try and go toe-to-toe. My other question would have been whether you would have considered a tornado trigger, but I think given the armor already there on Truth, maybe not so much a consideration to take if they start the game up again, Dalsy. Yeah, I like the breaking point of Idris. I do.
Oh, Bradley gets feared there. He used the Crucible, but there's a little... it seems like a lot of people don't quite understand the fear mechanic here, where if you block the Fearsome Shade, but then the reflex block wears out and you're still standing in the Fearsome Shade, you will still get feared. So you have to actually move against the Fearsome Shade, essentially away from it, rather than moving with it, if you want to continue not being feared by Batista's ultimate.
Crystal Sentry defeated.
You can also build stacks with Chakra if you hit it, I believe. I believe
Yep.
Chakram helps you build stacks so nice. So if you're hitting a really, really good Chakrams, especially across multiple targets, you can build very quick breaking point stacks on the Idris, and then you can actually use those breaking point stacks to hit a massive hitting ultimate too. It's like almost like an executing ultimate once you've picked up a lot of stacks on those on the weapon power. So I think it's all about timing, about when you choose to press that button, when you've got those stacks building up on the Idris. Because if you built up 10 to 15 stacks and then use your ultimate, that might be enough to literally burst that box out. So yeah, I do like the breaking point here for Juan Hernandez, but he is still going up against Vox, who's already very tanky with War Treads, by the way. Something that we've seen a lot more of on carries, especially of the likes of Baron and Vox.
I definitely like War Treads at the moment as well. We'll have to see how this fight breaks out as Nova's singled out Bradley. Over the wall comes the Frostburn slows, but that's going to be Juan stuck up. Bradley going to get feared. Nova has a judgment, and that's going to be an Oblivion missing as well. Juan dives onto Truth, trying to find the damage, but that's going to be another Oblivion. Oh, they find the kill onto the Batiste, and that's going to be Starboy trying to just finish off the fight. Of course, Lara has damage, perhaps not enough. There is a range advantage here for Juan and Lightning T if they can throw abilities at the same time, but a Scout Trap finds another kill. That's Starboy's second Star Trap kill so far on stream. Loving it. The life of the captain. That's going on. Finding a lot of healing, but he needs to re-engage. He can't run away as Idris. You have to fight. And that's going to be the kills going over to Nova. They have a chance to take the Kraken here. Unless Bradley makes a hero play, this should easily be Nova's.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they should be able to secure this one nice and easily. And again, you're coming to the point in the game where late game you just feel like Lightning T on this Samuel is starting to have less impact. Suddenly the double War Treads gives them excellent engage to close that range gap. And Truth is one of these Vox players that commits. When he finds a potential kill, he literally commits to it and sticks to his target like glue. And he's been doing that across this entire game, sometimes to his detriment when he thinks that he can take Lightning T on in a 1v1 at low HP, but often to the advantage of his team, where he's able to just literally proc his resonance, run at a target, build those stacks very quickly and burst them down. And I think Truth's one of the sort of Vox players that isn't afraid to commit to the fact that he's incredibly scary when chasing down targets and building up those breaking point stacks very quickly as well.
I've actually been a little bit disappointed in Juan's neglection of Atlas. It is so crucial as an Idris when fighting against a Vox. I rush it. every time I play against Vox, you know, it will be my... I'll probably finish it before I finish my third offensive item because of how important it is. Cutting down Vox's attack speed makes this matchup so much easier for you. It looks like Nova are gearing up for the win. Truth hard committing to that kill, but will be able to escape with his life. Will get healed up by Starboy fairly easily. It's going to be the turret falling here. Nova in a very good position now to push for the win. Unless NRG are able to burst down Truth, then this should be GG. And Juan, he's looking very scared. That's going to be Bradley going in, but another great usage of the Fearsome Shade. Not blocked up, and that's going to be an Oblivion being missed as well. Truth very low, but Lone Delphi's doing so much work, and he is going to find the kill there onto the Idris. It's only Lightning T left alive, trying to find a kill onto Truth, but he's just not able to. Here comes the Malice and Verdict coming out. Ordained will force him out of it, and that just makes the job so much easier for the side of Nova. They lose Starboy. The Truth just dancing with the devil right now. Very happy too because the Kraken is winning the game. Lone Delphi, Fearsome Shade. Oh, doesn't quite push Lightning T away. Got trapped between a turret, but it is just going to be this game over, I think. We know that Samuel is one of the worst Kraken takers in the game, but Idris isn't, and Juan is up. He won't even bother attacking it. They know game's over. A sweet 2-0 for Nova.
Yeah, very, very decisive. Pre-20 minutes wins. Both of these in this best of two going Nova's way. They will find themselves smack bang in the North American VG8 final from a 0-2 to making it to the final in the third week here. What a turnaround for the Nova squad. I love the double war treads as well. It meant they were able to just shovel that Lone Delphi Batiste into land ordains onto key mobility targets like Lightning T. I think Nova really, really played this well.
Certainly did, and I hope that answers some of your questions about the Idris versus Vox matchup. Ultimately is a skill matchup. Maybe Juan will need to brush up on his Idris skills. Either way, it's a 2-0 over to Nova.
Certainly is a 2-0 over to Nova, going from 0-2 across the first 2 weeks to 2-0 in the third week. Fantastic stuff coming out from Nova. They've made it to the finals. I almost can't believe my eyes. I want to break down that game just a little bit, though, because, again, Nova managing to run away with things in the end, but it was a little bit back and forth during the early game.
Yeah, it was really funny. I mean, that 10-minute mark, they're even, and then the 11-minute mark, they trade turret for turret, and then they get some kills off each other.